how did you start into music, like seriously? At what age and what was the reason?
I took lessons when I was a little kid in classical guitar for a few years until I could, learn how to play some songs off the records that I had, and then I didn't want to take lessons anymore. I was playing since I was like 10 years old. I think I got my first guitar when I was maybe 12. My dad had a guitar, so yeah, then I played in high school bands, and I played a lot of rock music, and I just kind of kept playing, it never kind of got old. I just wanted to keep learning and keep playing. In my 20s, I joined a church and I got into church music and worship music, and then the people in charge, basically just gave me this gig to do music on Sundays, and I was doing that, and then out of the blue, I kind of got this job doing it full time, and I had to move cities, and it was a big deal because all of a sudden I was, being the music and art director at this large church. Yeah, I moved from Vancouver to Kelowna to get to do this job.
Okay.
And then after that, in the middle of this job, I ended up getting invited to go and do these conferences and worship concerts across Canada, and then all around the world. I worked at that job for about 4 years, and during that time, and for a few years even after I left, I was playing all over the world. I came to Europe a lot, Scandinavia. I went to Japan and Asia and through the States doing church music. So I really gained a lot of experience, especially being a band leader, because in that context, you come into a situation as the songwriter and the band leader, and you have a band that's there for the weekend, and they've gathered together some musicians for you, but you have literally like 1 or 2 rehearsals to teach them the material, and you had to decide, how competent these musicians were going to be able to play the stuff and learn it that fast. Some bands I would show up and they'd already know all my songs, so that would be great, but other bands were not that capable. So I did that for about 4 years, like I said, and then I decided I didn't want to be a church musician anymore, that I want to go back to being just a blue-collar musician.
Blue-collar.
Anyway, so yeah, I decided I wanted to go back and kind of get more into folk music and the songwriting world. And
so has that been like your music before all that? Or was that something you discovered while in the church?
No, that's what I was doing beforehand. I was, I was part of a group in Vancouver of songwriters. I was getting a bit of traction, as a songwriter in my 20s. There were some concerts that were promoted in Vancouver for merging Vancouver songwriters, and I really liked the idea of being part of that songwriting community, and that's kind of what I missed, just having this job as a church musician. So yeah, I mean, it was a great time of my life being a church musician, but I knew that it was not going to be for me something I wanted to do for my whole life, and so I went back to my thing, and but thankfully a lot of people kind of knew me through my church music across the country and even beyond. So I would come and do concerts, but I'd say, I'm not going to do my church music concert. I'm just going to do my songwriting concert. But people would give it a chance, and some people continued to follow my music. Most people were like, "Oh, that's not what I signed up for. I thought you were this, Christian musician guy." And but some people were into the music and continued to buy my records and stuff. So Yeah, so that's how I got into it. By that time, I was in the part of a trio called Smith Funkenstrauss.
Yeah.
So Norm Strauss was in the trio. He is German, German citizen, and he was
German Canadian.
German Canadian citizen, and he was working here doing art and music and worship school. So he had the initial connections when I first came to Germany, and so we would tour around as a trio. But then I started to get into my tap style guitar music a few years after I was in this trio.
So you were with a trio already here a few times.
Oh yeah, we toured here a few times with the trio, and
I thought there was something more local in Canada.
no, I mean we were playing across the country in Canada as well, in the folk scene, folk clubs and stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, that trio, was kind of reasonably successful in the folk music world, and we made a few records and did a lot of touring. But then I got into guitar music, the tap style stuff, and yeah, I don't know how I got at this festival, but there was a festival called I don't know, World Guitar or something like that, and it was in Dresden, and I guess somebody had seen the trio, and they suggested that I could play at this festival, so I was invited to play at that festival. Oh, it was Peter Finger. He's a famous German guitarist, and he was organizing these festivals.
That's funny when a guitar player has a name.
I
With
know,
something that's related to guitar playing.
We thought for sure it was a stage name.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was super fun, and that really kind of encouraged me to dive into it even more. So I spent, I'm going to say, I mean, I didn't stop doing my folk music and songwriter thing, but I really dove into the guitar music thing for a while. And yeah, then the trio ended, and I just carried on doing solo stuff. And then I've just been kind of playing with different combinations of people over the years. And the default is always just to do some solo stuff, but I much prefer if I can play with at least one or two other musicians on stage. It makes it a lot more fun. Yeah, so a major part of my kind of musical journey has been to learn to be an audio engineer and to run a studio, because I realized after I left the church music scene that in order to make enough money to survive in the folk music world, I would have to be traveling non-stop, and I realized I didn't want to do that. For one thing, I don't like to travel non-stop. I like to go out for a couple weeks and play every night, and then I like to go home again and just go out and come back.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make enough money that way. Plus, so I had to decide. I had 4 kids, 4 young kids at home, and so I had this little record company, and I had always hired other studios to do our records. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do the next record myself, and I invested in all the gear, and I started to learn. And I had learned, a lot just sitting beside the producer of my last records, but that was a steep learning curve nonetheless, to start doing my own records, and also started to do records for other people. And
What was the name of the record label?
it was called Remnant Records.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the God Rock thing was before with...
No, God Rock was part of Remnant Records.
Okay, with Norm Strauss together.
So Norm and we started this record company together, but then when he left town, he moved to Vancouver, and he said, look, I'm not going to be available to do any record company stuff. You just do it. You take it over. So I kept, and we ended up signing different musicians and doing records for a little while. And but the studio thing has always carried on. So now I've been doing it for like 25 years, and that's been my day job.
Wow.
So I can go out and play live when I want to, but I don't have to because the studio is generally has generally got work. After all this time, it just has continued to provide an income for me and allow me to continue to go out and play from time to time, do a few tours here and there, and also play locally. And so I'm very thankful to have this kind of mix of the studio and the live stuff.
So what does a typical Andrew Smith workday look like?
I once wrote a song about it. It's called, it's not called A Day in the Life, that's a Beatles tune, but it's called This Is One of Them, and I basically describe what a day typically is, but I guess it's, I like to spend the morning, or my best hours are in the morning after I wake up and drink some coffee. That's when I am most productive, and I try to always reserve that time for my own music. And I'm always trying to push myself to learn new things, especially new styles of music. I got into learning a lot of jazz standards, which was a lot of work. I got into the tap style guitar. Now I'm starting to dig into bluegrass a little bit with the flat picking, because that's a whole new world for me, because I've always done fingerstyle. And so the flat picking thing, I feel like, a beginner again, using a pick, because I've never been that great with a pick, but...
Picking with a pick.
Yeah, picking
strumming
with a pick.
is another thing,
Yeah, strumming, I've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, so I take those first few hours when my energy is the best, and I focus on my own stuff, and then I just go into my studio, which is in my house, and I work on other people's music.
What's your studio called?
It's called Lake Studios.
Why Lake Studios?
Well, I live on Okanagan Lake. It's in Okanagan Valley in the middle of British Columbia, and it's a lake that's kind of like the Bodensee. It's about 100 kilometers long and about that wide, and there's 3 kind of major towns on the lake, one on each end, and in the middle is where I live, and so we call it Lake Studios. We were looking around for a great name, and we're, the iconic studios. There's Ocean Studios, right? Mountain Studios. That's more of a mastering studio, but then, so we thought that'd be great. So it's lakestudios.ca. And the reason it's called Studios, even though, my place is just one sound booth and a control room.
And you're the only one who works there,
and I'm
right?
the only one that works there.
Yeah.
But Zachary, my son, has a recording studio, and both of our studios work together on most of the projects.
Okay.
Zachary's studio was in Montreal for several years, and now it's out in Halifax. But still, we promote the studio kind of together, because we say any instruments that we use to play on your records, we're only charging you the studio rate. So that's really attractive to people, because a lot of times if they have to hire the session people, they have to pay them, $100 an hour plus the studio rate of $60 an hour. But we say we'll just do it for whatever the studio rate is, for playing it and then also for mixing it. So Zachary plays drums, he plays pedal steel, dobro. That's his main kind of things, and then he does percussion sometimes. And I play guitar, mandolin, banjo, bass on a lot of the records. Sometimes they have their own musicians that they want to hire, and sometimes we need to hire people because we just don't play the instruments. Horn players, string players. I'm not a great piano player, so sometimes if it's a simple part, Zach or I will do the piano, but if it's a more challenging part, we just hire somebody. And we do a lot of the background vocals, but we need female background vocalists. We hire them. So anyways, it's been this collaboration between Zach and I with the studio work. And he has a similar kind of life. He works in the studio, plus he tours. And he gigs a lot more than I do. But
it sounds somehow so easy. Then we hire a background vocalist or a piano player. But there must be like a network, or do you have like just a few people you always ask, or like a lot?
I mean,
how does that look like?
Well, I have my kind of go-to guys, like especially when it comes to violin or fiddle, cello, saxophone, these kind of things. I have my kind of go-to guys, and if they're not available, I go down the list. I have, there's quite a few good session players in our town. And then sometimes either they're not available or, for whatever reason, sometimes I just need to hire somebody off the internet.
Yeah, okay.
And
so, but basically what I hear is that they are in town.
Yeah.
And so they probably come into your studio to record.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my preferred thing. There is one upright bass guy who just always wants to do it at home, but I trust him. He always does a good job. And then he just sends me the files. So, there's sometimes those guys. But, Zachary was telling me, and he's part of this online session player thing. You should do that. I forget what it's called. Yeah, you just upload your profile and a few samples of you playing,
Yeah.
And Zach has done it for Pedal Steel and I think for Dobro. And then you go onto this site and you say, well, I need like a country fiddle or something, or I need like a screaming lead guitar solo, And then all these different people come up. You look at their profile, you listen to the samples, and then you can just hire them. It's kind of like a, the Airbnb kind of model.
I think I know the site, but I also can't remember the name right now.
Yeah, it slips my mind. So I like to use the local guys because, it's part of my community, and I like to stay connected, with these different guys. And also, if I find a great session player, sometimes I hire them for a live gig, The older I get, the more I'm just like, I only work 9 to 5,
Okay.
I don't want, sometimes I have to, because a lot of the songwriters that I work with are they're not, professional.
So they work themselves.
Yeah, they have to, come in the evenings or the weekends. But I always just like to get people to come in during the day, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And, sometimes I'm pushed to work evenings and weekends, but most of the time I just keep it pretty chill.
Okay.
Just work my 9 to 5.
So you said the studio is in your house.
Yeah.
Is it like totally soundproof to the outside, or is there traffic going on? How do you deal with?
It's pretty soundproof. So we've just built a kind of a space that it worked out just so amazingly well, because when I moved into this house, I had this guy come in, and he's actually a builder, but he wanted to do a record, and he was kind of a rock musician, but he didn't have a band. He was just an electric guitar and vocal. And when he came in, to talk about the project and just to kind of get to know each other, he said, "Oh, I did the renovations on this house right next door to you."
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, well, so you're a builder?" I said, "Because I need this space built. I just moved into this place." And I said, "How much would it cost to build this space, and plus build my sound booth?"
Yeah.
Triple pane glass, and you know, and the triple kind of walls and all that stuff to make it soundproof. And so he gave me an estimate, and we did a barter system. I recorded some songs, and it worked out perfectly. So yeah, so it's just, you know, part of my house, and it's not big. I've worked in a lot bigger spaces where I'm recording bands off the floor, but right now I don't do that. I just basically work with songwriters who want me to not only record their songs but arrange their songs.
Okay.
You know, they don't necessarily have full-time bands. Maybe they'll put musicians together when they're playing a series of gigs or whatever, but they can't afford to, you know, have a full-time band. So they'll ask me to arrange the song, and for me, that's the funnest part of being, you know, of doing the studio work, is arranging songs. You know, somebody comes in, they just got a raw song with a guitar and vocal, and I just kind of pick their brain and try to understand the kind of music styles they like and different artists that they like and what sound they're looking for. A lot of times they don't know exactly. They just like, you know what, I just want it to be a big full band sound, and so go and give it a try. And to me, that's just fun to have that kind of blank canvas to work with and to arrange and start adding the instruments and coming up with the parts. It's a lot of fun.
So how was the pandemic situation for you?
Actually, I got really busy during the pandemic in the studio, and you know, I tried some of those online gigs and stuff, but people got tired of those pretty fast. I mean, it was a thing for the first year, I guess.
We attended one, actually.
Oh yeah, that I did?
With you and Zach.
Oh, okay.
You switched between. I think it was still Montreal. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
It was interesting, but it was only a handful of people.
Yeah, it was very difficult to kind of pull it off and, you know, feel like you're actually playing for an audience. But yeah, we did what we could, right? So yeah, but I always thought that me getting out and playing locally is one of the main reasons that I kept getting work, because people knew that I was also a music producer and that I had this studio. But, you know, because I'm always out playing and connecting, and also, you know, some of these things are, you know, where you have multiple songwriters on the stage, and so you're connecting with the songwriters, and that just that word of mouth and being a part of the musical community helped me to you know, stay connected and generate a lot of business for the studio. You know, it seemed to carry on pretty good during the pandemic.
So what is the situation now? Like,
it
how
really
was
slowed
this year?
down. Like this year, like last year was the busiest ever in the studio.
Wow.
I had so many projects going on that I had to have my whiteboard out every day to figure out, okay, who's like really, you know, saying that, when am I going to get my mix,
Yeah.
you know? And I had to like make sure that I was trying to keep everybody happy because I had so much going on. And this year it just kind of died off, is because everybody was getting out playing. They already had their records, I guess, that they made during the pandemic. And I was kind of the same. I was glad, you know, that the studio work went down a lot, because I was out playing a lot more, and I decided this year I'm going to try to play with a lot of different people. And so I played in all these different combinations of players just over the course of this year when I started to get back into it. And, you know, so it worked out well that the studio wasn't as busy. You know, I still have some work, but it's like, you know, 2, maybe 3 projects going on instead of, you know, 10 or 12 at the same time that I'm trying to manage.
But that means you still can work like the whole day in the studio on some projects, or is there even like days or time where there's nothing to do?
Yeah, there was like I'm gonna say like 3 weeks where I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Drives you crazy, huh?
Yeah, well, it was fine. I just took the opportunity. I said, you know what? I always wanted to really dig into this stuff, but then you're always like, well, I got to get into the studio, you know. And so I started to dig into, that flat picking thing and some other jazz tunes. And I was starting to work on some more tap style arrangements of jazz tunes. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of work, and you really have to stay focused for a long period of time. So, I started to get a bit nervous, though, I have to admit. But then, some more work came in and it was fine. But I decided, hey, I'm always complaining that I don't have time to, really dig into my own music enough. So I can't complain. I'm just going to start doing it. So I took the opportunity to, to make the most of it.
But it's always easier if you went past that nervous point, look back, it's like, yeah, that was actually a good time because I could use the time I had. But when you're in the midst of it, it's like,
oh yeah, that's right.
Oh gosh.
I know. And you're out playing, local gigs. You're not doing tours every night. You're just playing, maybe on the weekends, and that's not going to pay the bills, So
yeah,
you're getting a bit nervous there, but yeah, it was fine. It ended up okay.
If I'm an artist, I have 3 songs, and I can sing and play guitar, and I want to get in touch with you. Yeah. How does that work?
Yeah, you just go to lakestudios.ca, and you look at everything that we've done. We've got to update it from the last couple of years, but there's dozens of album projects on there that you can go listen to different genres of music that we've recorded. We've kind of become known for, acoustic sounds, really good acoustic guitar sounds, and good, roots music stuff.
Real instruments.
Yeah, real instruments recorded with microphones, and but we do a lot of different styles as well. But that's kind of become our main kind of stuff, folk, roots, and jazz and stuff like that. But yeah, you just go there, and then you can contact us, and people send us a note, and they say, hey, I'm a local songwriter, would you be available to chat about my project? And so then I just get in touch with them, and I usually just have a visit with them at the studio.
Okay.
And they come in, and I tell them to bring their instrument and play me some of the stuff live, and we can talk about their vision for the project. Sometimes it's very simple. They just want to, they want a very simple kind of record of, a document. They want to say, I got all these songs, and I just want to get them down and recorded. And sometimes people come in and they have very full album kind of project visions, and sometimes it's singles, and you don't know. But usually what I say is I don't like to start off by taking on a full album project unless they already know me and they trust me, and I like working with them. I say, let's commit to 2 songs. Pick 2 songs of yours that are quite different, because I don't know if it's going to be the best working partnership. Maybe we're not going to be on the same page, or maybe we won't enjoy the working relationship. I don't want to commit to doing a full album project with you. Let's just do a couple songs.
Okay.
And that gives them kind of a sense of relief too, because if they don't like working with me, or if they don't, they don't know me yet, right? They don't trust me yet, and so it just puts everybody at ease, and we say, okay, it's not gonna, it cost you your life savings to do a couple songs, and you can find out if you like it, and if I like it, because I can bail out after 2 songs, even if they want to go. Sometimes I just, I, for whatever reason, I might not want to continue on, and so that's how we start off, and then 99 times out of 100 they want to carry on because they're
content.
They like what they got.
And if an artist is like not near you, but is, for example, willing to come to the studio for the recording,
Yeah.
would you like? Did you ever have that? Like a phone call or something? Like to get the first contact, get in touch.
Yeah, I've recorded some people from Vancouver and some people from Alberta, and often the way that I've connected is that I've been out there gigging, and they've seen my concert, and they're a musician, and they find out that I'm a music producer as well, and so a lot of times just on my CD table I'll also have my Lake Studios kind of business card, and they'll pick it up and they'll check out the website, and they'll say, well, I want to do something with you. So I said, well, unless you can hire a local studio there and send me, a vocal and guitar track or whatever it is, instrument, or you can, make the trip to Kelowna, and if you can, I would prefer that, because sometimes if it's a songwriter, and usually it is, who comes to work with me, they want, some of them want input all the way from the song structure, all the way through to a finished production. Some people don't touch my song, this is the way I like it.
Don't touch my song.
But other people say, I like your songwriting, and I want input on, what should we do for an introduction, or how should we treat the outro, or, is there too much kind of space in the segue before the bridge, and all that, more that kind of stuff. Sometimes they're even saying, well, what about this lyric? Sometimes we're getting really into ripping their songs apart and making sure that they're as strong as they can be. So
if anybody comes from like further away, you don't have like a guest room or something?
I do have a guest room, and sometimes, that's only happened once, but I do have an extra room in my house so people can stay over.
Okay.
So many times I have people say, after a session or after an album project, I was so stressed out about doing this, and I thought it was going to be, just the most stressful experience, and it was just so much fun. And I said, yeah, it's supposed to be fun. Making music is supposed to be fun, but people have a fear of, committing something to tape, and I understand that, but I try to make it fun, I try to make it relaxing. But, at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how hard can I push this artist,
Okay.
It's like, and if I get to know them well, then I get a sense of, no, I know I can get better out of you. Sometimes I say, let's just wrap it up for today,
Yeah.
This is not working today, but I know you can do better. Let's not waste our time. And sometimes, I'm always going to ask for several, if not numerous, vocal takes, until I get to that point where it's getting worse, Sometimes the first take is the best, and in fact, often that happens. But a lot of times people need to warm up and get used to the whole environment and the headphones and the booth and the whole experience, and it takes them a while, So I just keep pushing and pushing until they get that. Either the quality goes down or the frustration of the artist is going up, and so it's just like, okay, good, we're done. You nailed it.
Yeah. Let's get something to eat, and then everybody's happy.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for the future, it's like, is there something you would change if you could? Like the type of artist, the type of work you do, the percentage of playing live and being in the studio?
I think, especially after the pandemic and working so hard in the studio, that I'd like to change the ratio a bit more to playing live again.
Okay.
At least for a couple of years. And also, continuing to experiment with different combinations of musicians. I'm not playing big enough gigs to be able to hire a band, but it's nice if you can play at least with us, one other person, and get out and gig.
What advice would you give to kind of young musicians up and coming, or not young, but just starting into, I want to make this serious with maybe writing my own songs and doing a recording, and how to prepare for this and all this stuff, out of your experience?
It's such a broad question, but I guess if my main kind of advice would be to take your work seriously yourself, and if you want other people to take your work seriously, then you have to practice, you have to study, you have to always get better. And I'm old, but I still feel like if I don't get better all the time, then I won't have a job. So especially as a young person, you have to be the greatest musician in the world, but you always have to be improving. And so press yourself to discover new things. And when you look at some music that moves you and you think, oh, that is so great, that is so moving, but it seems so complicated and beyond my grasp. It's not. It's not beyond your grasp. You just have to totally break it down, get some help, when I decided that I wanted to start learning jazz, I was already, pretty old, and I had played music for so long and all kinds of different styles. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go take some guitar lessons. And so all the people around me were like saying, come on, you're not taking guitar lessons. It's like, you're giving. I was like, no, I don't give guitar lessons, but I do need to take them. So I went to this jazz guy who I loved his playing, and I took some lessons. And then he said, I've seen some of your concerts, and I really like your shows. And he was being, serious. So I said, well, if you like them so much, why don't we do some shows together? And so instead of having to pay for lessons, we started to do some shows together.
And that's Neil.
And that's Neil. And I started to learn for free, and we went and we ended up touring together and gigging together for about 5 years, and I learned so much from him. He was an older musician, maybe 12 years older than me, and was an incredible player. So yeah, that's the main thing. Just keep learning. And when it comes to specifics of how to prepare for getting some of your material recorded, well, that's the same kind of idea. Make sure that you know what you want to record. Usually musicians always think that the latest song they wrote is the best song, and it's not necessarily the case.
Oh, that's interesting.
So sometimes you have to bounce a bunch of songs, a bunch of demos off people that you know and trust, and say, which ones do you like the best? Because we always like our latest songs the best. So we don't have that objectivity that other people have. And so getting your set list together, then making sure that you got your parts together. If you're going to go into the studio and just do vocal and guitar, a lot of times the studio, like I know I'm like this, I don't want to record your vocal and guitar at the same time. Sometimes I do that because sometimes it's just important for the song. If there's a lot of changing of tempos and it's really dependent on how the voice and the guitar works together, I'm fine to record them together. But generally speaking, I'm going to get a lot better guitar sound and a lot better vocal sound if the artist is able to record them separately. And so I always tell the artist when they're coming in, make sure you practice just the guitar part by itself and just the vocal part, singing to a recorded guitar part, because Otherwise, it's going to feel very strange when you get in the studio and you're in this little booth and you're looking out through glass and you got headphones on and the red recording light is blinking and your nerves are like kind of through the roof, and now you're going to have to learn how to sing it for the first time without playing it, or the other way around. It's not it's not recommended. So just get prepared for the session with the songs and also with your performance. And trust your instincts about what you like and what you imagine that your recorded song is going to be like. My job as a producer is to try to really pick the artist's brain and ask them a lot of questions and see if we can listen to, go to YouTube and see if we can listen to some of the music that they love and that they imagine, oh, I'd love it to sound, I love this sound, and I love this band, and I'd like to, lean into that a bit. So the more that you can communicate to the producer, the better chance you're going to be happy with the recording when it's all done. As for live stuff, I don't know. I always think it's great for musicians, especially if you're a songwriter, to be able to perform solo, because it really gives you the opportunity to play a lot live, because a lot of times you're going to be playing gigs that they don't pay enough to support a band. But being on stage and playing your own songs and interacting with an audience a lot is how you kind of grow as a performer. And the whole performance thing is, some people seem to find it more naturally, but a lot of us, we've learned to be performers and storytellers just by repetition, doing it over and over again and finding out how to connect with an audience and how to get an audience to relax, and so that you can enjoy the kind of experience together, because that's the main goal of a live music experience, is to feel like the stage has disappeared and we're all experiencing this music together. And if people feel that, and and it's not just like this great distance between their seat and the performer on the stage, then they're going to take away something. The walls are going to come down. They're going to just be open to your music, and they're going to be having an incredible experience. So so that's kind of some stuff about recording and live performance. I guess that's off the top of my head. That's the advice that I would give. And so I said, be serious about your own work, but at the same time, I always say, follow your joy. What do you love and what moves you? And because if you just get into learning stuff and practicing stuff that you think is good for you, and you never play and learn and practice stuff that really brings you joy, then it's not gonna be sustainable. You have to be able to get up in the morning and play your guitar and don't think, okay, and what scales do I have to practice? No, just let the music just kind of work for your own therapy first off, and then then it leads into, I was gonna try to figure out how to do that, and then, but start off just playing for your own joy and your own therapy. That's how I kind of start my days, working on my own music. Then I have to work on other people's music to pay the bills, and that's fine. But do it for fun.
Let's say I play guitar and I sing. I'm like, I have a computer, I got an interface already. I want to record myself. Like, which microphone would you suggest buying if you're on a budget?
Well, I don't know if it's really a budget. It's about $1,100 Canadian. It's not the most expensive mic, but it's not really cheap. But my kind of go-to mic is the AKG 414.
Oh,
And it's a large diaphragm. It's very flat. It's so good because it's just so natural and flat. It doesn't hype up the top end, in high frequencies with all these S's and breaths, and it's also amazing for guitars and voice, and so that's kind of my go-to. I mean, I use small diaphragm condensers on my guitar a lot too, but especially if I'm just getting ideas down, and I just use it for both. I just sing into it and I play into it. It's a fantastic mic. I have some nice EQs, and I love the sound of when you bring up the high end on the EQs, and if you already have too much high end on a hyped mic, that a lot of times they're pitching these mics as vocal mics because they're hyped on the top end and they sound really sweet and they have all this air, but there's no room for once you compress them and you have some EQ on them, it's just too crunchy and too bright. Yeah, so I like to start with something pretty flat.